Every manager has a weapon. A left-handed specialist to neutralize a left-handed hitter. A right-handed power arm to shut down the other side. It works against almost everyone. Almost. When Chipper Jones walked to the plate, none of that applied. Switch him to the left side, he hit 304. Force him to the right, 305. Barely a difference. Mark Teixeira, who played alongside him, put it simply. LeBron James was born to play basketball, just like Chipper Jones was born to play baseball. The playbook did not have a page for Chipper Jones. B.B. Abbott met Chipper Jones when Chipper was 4 years old. They grew up in the same town in Central Florida, played Little League together, and stayed close for decades. By the time Abbott became his agent in 1999, he had already watched Chipper for over 30 years. Like most people who are great at things, Abbott said, he was just singularly driven. This is what he was born and raised to do. I don't believe there was any alternative in his mind. The switch hitting did not happen by accident. Chipper's father, Larry Jones Sr., was obsessed with Mickey Mantle. When Chipper was 7, his father started making him hit from both sides of the plate, not in a batting cage, but in their backyard, with a 32-inch PVC pipe and a tennis ball. Chipper described it himself. We used to watch the Saturday game of the week on TV. After the game was over, we'd go out in the backyard and imitate the lineup. Whenever a left-handed hitter came up, I had to hit left-handed. My dad standing 40 feet away, chucking a tennis ball as hard as he can. That's how you learn to hit the fastball right there. Most switch hitters maintain two completely different swings. Chipper called his own polar opposites. He spent 33 years perfecting both. By the time he reached the major leagues, the work was already done. Greg Maddux won 4 consecutive Cy Young Awards. He was called the professor because he studied hitters the way academics study texts, breaking down every tendency, every weakness, every pattern. If anyone could explain what made a hitter dangerous, it was Maddux. What he said about Chipper Jones was not what anyone expected. Maddux recalled sitting with Chipper before games, playing cards, talking baseball. During one of those sessions, Chipper pointed to the opposing pitcher's name on the lineup card and made a specific prediction, not just that he would get a hit, but the exact pitch type, the exact count, and the exact result. I wish I remembered the name of this pitcher. Maddux said, but anyhow, Chipper said, if this guy throws me a 1-0 changeup tonight, I'm going to take him deep. A couple hours later, he drilled a 1-0 changeup over the left center field wall. Not many hitters can do that. I think I waited 5 more years before I saw it again, when I was playing for the Dodgers with Manny Ramirez. 5 years. And the next person Maddux compared to Chipper was Manny Ramirez, one of the most feared hitters of that entire generation. What made this ability so disorienting for pitchers was the mechanism behind it. Chipper did not guess randomly, he set traps. In an early at-bat with nobody on base, he would deliberately chase a specific pitch, let the pitcher think that pitch worked. Then, in a high-leverage situation later in the game, he would sit and wait for that exact pitch to come back. Maddux, who spent his entire career doing the same thing to hitters from the mound, recognized immediately what Chipper was doing. Every at-bat mattered to him, Maddux said. He never gave away an at-bat, never gave away a pitch, was always prepared, was never surprised when it was his turn to hit. When you're getting 600 at-bats a year, not many guys can do that. You'll see guys get 2 hits, and the next at-bat, they're just up there going through the motions, but not with Chipper. If he got 2, he wanted 3. The man who spent his career inside the heads of hitters had met his equal just standing on the other side of the plate. Brian McCann spent years crouching behind home plate, watching Chipper Jones hit from the closest seat in the ballpark. What he saw was not just talent, it was something closer to a system. The thing that stands out for me, McCann said, is how he would sit on pitches. His baseball IQ really is unmatched. He was 3 steps ahead of the pitcher he was facing. He would set guys up when there was nobody on base, so that if he faced them again with guys on, he would get certain pitches. If he was out on a pitch his first at bat, he would come up to me and be like, hey, I'm going to sit on this pitch and take him deep. And then he would do it. McCann also recalled a moment early in his career that he never forgot. He came up in a tie game with runners on base, faced a closer whose best pitch was a split finger, and struck out on 3 consecutive split fingers. Walking back to the clubhouse, Chipper was waiting for him. He pulls me into a room, McCann said. He says, "Listen, what's that guy's best pitch?" And I'm like, "It's his split finger." And Chipper says, "Well, guess what? That's all you're going to get. He's going to throw you his best pitch with the game on the line." That lesson cost McCann one at bat. But Chipper's preparation extended far beyond his own plate appearances. Before the division series against Houston in 2005, McCann, then a rookie, watched Chipper go through the entire opposing pitching staff and tell each Braves hitter, individually, what they were going to see. He was not just hitting, he was running the room. There is a certain kind of respect that only comes from the people trying to get you out. Pedro Martinez was the most dominant pitcher of his generation, and by his own admission, Chipper Jones was one of the hardest hitters he ever faced. The story that circulated among baseball writers said more than any statistic could. Journalist Molly Knight, covering the Hall of Fame weekend in July 2015 when Martinez was inducted, shared what Pedro had told her directly. The first time she met him in a clubhouse, he was wearing a fluorescent yellow shirt and singing a song he had made up about Chipper Jones. Pedro loved Chipper Jones so much, Knight wrote, he was in awe of how good he was for so long and how tough he was to face. But the detail that truly captured the dynamic came from the 2008 season when Chipper was 36 years old and flirting with a .400 batting average for months. Martinez told Knight that if it came down to the final week of that season and Chipper was still close to .400, he would absolutely throw him hittable pitches to help him get there. A pitcher who spent his entire career trying to make hitters look helpless was willing to hand one of them a gift, not out of pity, but out of pure respect. Chipper understood exactly what that advantage meant. "I can't imagine walking up to the plate and facing a Kevin Brown or a Pedro Martinez righty on righty," he said. "I thank God every day my dad made me turn around in the backyard." The respect went both ways, but Chipper had the better end of the arrangement. There is an unwritten rule in baseball. You do not own the opponent's stadium. You do not thrive there year after year, hit your first career home run there, post your best road numbers there, and then name your son after it. Chipper Jones did all of that. Over his career against the New York Mets, Chipper hit 49 home runs, drove in 159 runs, and batted .309. At Shea Stadium, specifically the place Mets fans considered sacred ground, he posted a slash line of .313, .407, .557, with 19 home runs. That was his highest home run total at any road ballpark in his entire career. The defining moment came in September of 1999. The Braves and Mets were separated by a single game in the division standings. Atlanta hosted New York for 3 games that would effectively decide the National League East. Chipper hit 4 home runs and drove in 7 of the 13 runs. The Braves scored across that sweep 2 home runs from the left side, 2 from the right. When the series ended, Chipper walked to a reporter and delivered a line that Mets fans have never forgotten. "Now, all the Mets fans can go home and put their Yankee stuff on." The Mets did not forget it either. When the two teams met again in the National League Championship Series that same year, New York's answer was simple: do not pitch to him. Chipper reached base 15 times in 29 plate appearances. 9 of his walks were intentional. The Mets would rather give up a free base than let him swing. In baseball, an intentional walk is the closest thing to a white flag a pitcher can raise. Mets catcher Mike Piazza tried a different approach. He told reporters he refused to call Chipper by his nickname. "I call him Larry whenever he comes to the plate," Piazza said. "I'm not going to call a grown man Chipper." The psychological tactic did not work. Chipper kept hitting. And years later, when one of his sons was born, Chipper named him Shea after the stadium where he had caused so much damage in the city that had spent a decade trying to slow him down. George Brett spent 21 seasons in the major leagues and retired as one of the greatest third basemen the game had ever seen. He held the all-time record for career runs batted in by a third baseman until Chipper Jones passed him. Brett did not seem bothered by it. In fact, when asked about Chipper at the Hall of Fame induction weekend in July 2018, Brett reached for a specific word that he and his longtime hitting coach Charlie Lau had developed together over the years. It didn't matter who was pitching, Brett said. He looked very, very comfortable in the batter's box. Charlie Lau and I used to have a word even when I made an out, or even if I struck out. He'd say, "George, you looked hitterish." It looked like you were going to hit the dog snot out of the baseball. Chipper Jones, in my mind, always looked hitterish. Mark Teixeira, who had played alongside some of the most feared hitters of his era, placed Chipper in a category of his own. I got to play with Alex Rodriguez and Vladimir Guerrero and Juan Gonzalez, Teixeira said. From an eye-hand contact standpoint, Chipper could put the barrel on the ball better than anybody. His coordination was so good, it didn't matter what type of pitcher was out there, whether it was a tough starter or a tough closer. Two men who had seen the best hitters of their generation up close both pointed to the same name. Fredi Gonzalez managed the Atlanta Braves during the final years of Chipper's career. He had watched great players before, but there was a specific moment that stopped him cold. Somebody said, "Hey, when he gets his next hit, make sure to get the ball because he's going to pass Lou Gehrig," Gonzalez recalled. And I said, "Whoa, Lou Gehrig? You know, all season, every time he passed a guy, another name, you'd be like, holy crap, they're all guys you never saw play." Chipper's teammate Eric Hinsky pointed to a different number one that many people overlooked entirely. "The number that sticks out to me," Hinsky said, "is that he's got more walks than strikeouts in his career." To me, that's not even comprehensible. Over 19 seasons, Chipper accumulated 1,512 walks against 1,409 strikeouts. He was one of only 3 active players at the time of his retirement to have achieved that alongside Albert Pujols and Todd Helton. In 2008, at the age of 36, he won his first batting title with an average of .364. The only players who had ever hit higher at that age or older were Tris Speaker, Ted Williams, Babe Ruth, Zach Wheat, Tony Gwynn, and Barry Bonds. Chipper himself admitted one regret. "I didn't swing the bat more when I was younger, or else I'd be a heck of a lot closer to the 3,000 hit mark." Even his self-criticism came with Hall of Fame numbers attached. Not everything that revealed Chipper Jones happened on a baseball field. John Smoltz, his teammate and fellow Hall of Famer, arranged a round of golf during spring training that brought together an unusual group. Smoltz, Chipper, Tiger Woods, and Annika Sorenstam, who at the time was the best female golfer on the planet. What happened on that course became one of the more telling stories about Chipper's raw physical ability. I remember Annika saying she had never seen somebody hit a ball that far, Smoltz recalled. But she also had never seen someone hit it to so many places. The woman who had spent her career mastering precision and power in her own sport had never encountered anything quite like it. The distance was real. The consistency was not. Chipper, for his part, was completely self-aware about it. "The golf ball is just sitting there waiting for you to hit it," he said. "And it frustrates me I can't make it go where I want it to go." There was something clarifying about that contrast. On a baseball field, Chipper controlled every variable: pitch recognition, timing, placement. On a golf course, with a stationary ball and no pitcher to read, he was ordinary. It suggested that what made him terrifying in the batter's box was not simply physical strength. It was the combination of that strength with a mind that never stopped calculating. In January 2018, the Baseball Hall of Fame announced its voting results. Chipper Jones appeared on 97.2% of all ballots, the highest percentage ever recorded for a switch hitter, and one of the highest in the history of the vote itself. For context, that placed him alongside Ken Griffey Jr., Tom Seaver, Nolan Ryan, and Hank Aaron. He did not need a second year on the ballot. The verdict was immediate. At the induction ceremony in Coopertown that July, Chipper stood at the podium and looked back at the man who had believed in him before anyone else had reason to. "Bobby," he said, referring to manager Bobby Cox, "you believed in me before I truly believed I belonged in the big leagues." Cox had said years earlier, during his own induction in 2014, that Chipper Jones would be making the same trip to Cooperstown sooner rather than later. He was right. Greg Maddux, who had watched Chipper take thousands of at-bats from the same dugout, offered the quietest and perhaps most honest summary of what 19 seasons with him had looked like. Just to have had a chance to watch him be that steady hitter every day during the first decade of his career, Maddux said, was pretty special. Chipper Jones was not without controversy outside the lines. His personal life drew criticism at various points, and his behavior on social media after retirement cost him admirers. But inside the white lines, across 19 seasons, against every pitcher, in every ballpark, from both sides of the plate, the people who faced him, coached him, and played beside him all arrived at the same conclusion. There was no page in the playbook for Chipper Jones. There never was.